Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow, and we're going to be doing something interesting today because I'm going to start letting you guys in behind the scenes as to the development of the social media platform SoBloks.com. That is something that my partner Jason and Jason, we should just call it J&J.com. But my partner Jason and I, we've been working on this for quite a while. And we're starting to get to a point where we're letting in users and we're starting to do different things. And we have kind of a whole, well, we've begun doing these weekly meetings. And I thought, well, why don't we just talk about the stuff that we're doing and planning and what's been done, and why don't we just share that with everybody who's interested? And I will create a new playlist called SoBloks. So you'll basically be able to follow along in the development. As I always say, the bear market is when you build. We're building. So Jason, thanks for. It's a good idea that we do this. I think you kind of originally said, "Hey, why don't we just start sharing the stuff with the public and showing them what we're doing?" And for those of you on my Twitter and everything, you're like, "Hey, I've got this full stack dev who's like looking for gigs and things." Now he doesn't seem to want any because now he's like full in on SoBloks and what we're doing here. I still feel, if he's got an opportunity to do some stuff, we've got plenty of time to build. But now he's just full bore on SoBloks and he blows me up every day and all night now, which is great. So we're gonna start cranking out some stuff. So I guess first of all, before we get into some of the back end of things, what you and I have been basically exchanging documents, and kind of writing these documents and planning out how this is going to work. And one of the biggest pitfalls, or basically one of the biggest hurdles we've had so far, are Cardano transaction fees, which obviously we're expecting to drop and go down in new ways when Hydra launches. But in the meantime, we're kind of working things a little differently to try and offset some of those potential expenses of minting posts, minting content, things like that to the Cardano blockchain. And we've recently kind of established a way that we're going to start implementing the block token into the platform, which you're now building. So I guess the first thing I guess I'd like to ask you is, what is it about SoBloks that you think is going to make this kind of the forefront of social media on the blockchain? Like, why are you all of a sudden, you're so wrapped up, you're so excited, you think this is going to be the biggest thing? What is driving you right now, given the fact that you're not making what you normally make as a full stack developer? Like, what's pushing you forward?
Yeah. Well, like you said, right, we've been working on this thing for, many months now. And, I think to be honest, it's like, kind of me catching up in technical terms with your idea and your vision. It's like you had this thing, you came to me, you wanted, built, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. It's cool. Honestly, kind of thinking in my head, like, why do we need another social network, type of thing. But as we have gone through this and we've worked through it, we've had all this Twitter drama going on, and as all the Twitter stuff's been going on, there's been a lot of things that have been leaked out. And so I think as you and I were working on this and just kind of, hammering out, what the features are and everything, there's been a lot of validation, I think, coming out of like these, I think they're like court released, like chats between Elon and various other, you know, his brother and I think other, VCs and angel investors, right? And it's the exact things that we were talking about. And I was just like, thinking that, okay, if this is already being mentioned, we've already talked about this, this is going to be a thing, and so I think that validation is kind of what's really, helped me kick it in gear in the past few months. We're talking about, we've been talking about, of course, building on a Cardano. What does that mean? How do we get all these things, working? And so to me, it seems inevitable that more and more, of these social media platforms are just gonna, go in on crypto, right? And there's all kinds of reasons for that too, which we can, go into later. But I think that being the case, and like you said too, it's just like, we're in a bear market, and when you're in a bear market, it's a perfect time to build. So yeah, I think seeing the writing on the wall and then, seeing that, this is a bear, it's just like, yeah, we're gonna be coming back at some point. And ideally as a project, as, a company that, later we're gonna be formalizing and everything, we want to be ahead of that curve, and we want to be able to, you know, we want to be able to be at the right point. So,
Yeah, I and that's good. And I'm glad we're definitely on the same page, because I read this stuff pretty much all day and night. And obviously I think that, censorship is an element to a lot of this, but also I feel like we need a platform that absolutely immortalizes quality content, quality
right,
voice, whatever that voice may be, but stuff that really helps define and change our future in a positive way, I feel should be immortalized. And I think that sometimes we forget really good stuff yesterday, that launched yesterday, because everything is so fast,
hmm,
and I think that quality content should rise to the top and be immortalized, and crap should just go away. That's the way I see it. Stuff might be good for a temporary joke or a quick laugh, but a lot of that stuff just ends up clogging a database for eons. It means nothing. It serves nobody. It's served its lifespan of 48 hours. And and I just think that kind of stuff it should be like the weather. It comes and goes, it changes. It's not persistent forever. But the good quality stuff should basically last forever. And I think ultimately the public should be able to have a say in what that content is. And that's ultimately how we're modeling SoBloks. And it's basically like social blocks on Cardano. It's basically the whole point of the name and what we're building. So I guess let's go into a little bit about kind of where we're at. You can show whatever you want to show, kind of where we're at, where we're heading, what's coming down the pipe soon, and why. Let's kind of explain things in detail, because I think that people are probably going to expect us to do some kind of big token sale, which that's not really in the plan. I think
right,
we're at a point where we do want to we do plan on listing a proposal on Project Catalyst and things. And if we're so lucky to maybe get some support from IOHK or Charles as we're moving forward, because to my knowledge we're the only platform doing this. And that's the way I want it. I want to be the first. I want to be the first social media block platform on Cardano, and it means a lot to me to do this. So but why are we not going for a token sale? What is our ultimate distribution model? And ultimately what we want to do is we want to build the use case first. I
right,
am very much yeah, it would be a lot easier for us to like sell tokens and put money into promoting it like everything else, and then hope for the best. But based off my experiences in the past, that's not the way I want to go with this. I don't want any reason for anybody to think, oh, SoBloks or block tokens, those are securities. No, they're utility, and we're going to build the
right,
utility for them first. We're going to use them. We're going to distribute them based off of engagement and activity on SoBloks.com, and whatever happens after that happens after that. But people are going to need these tokens basically because of the way the blockchain works. You have to have tokens to mint to the blockchain to basically to be able to function on Cardano. So that's why they exist. It's not because we want them to try and make a windfall of cash and we can rug pull later. It's not what it's about. You actually have to have the tokens to do what you want to do, the systems and the features that you have laid out. So let's go over some of that stuff and maybe put a little bit of an eyeglass on things for the people that are interested.
sure. Yeah, let me just really quick kind of add on to that. I've been in a lot of Silicon Valley tech companies for a long time. I've, been in all kinds of VC meetings, worked with a lot of high level founders, everything, right? So it's like I've seen all that stuff and everything. And to be honest, I loved when the ICO model came out, a few years ago. I loved it. I thought, man, this is like perfect, because it basically does what, we had to do in the real world, in a fraction of the time, and you can apply it globally. It's like we had all these rules, and when we're raising money and we're building a small company and everything, and they're all very focused on geographical location. And now this whole ICO model, just blows all this stuff up. And, it was very, to me, it was a very internet thing, and crypto thing. And I thought, man, that was the greatest thing ever. Now, obviously, the rug pulls, it's like there were a lot of fraudulent, things out there. We all understand what happened afterwards, where ICOs went and all that, right? So I think that all ties into like what you were saying is, we definitely want to avoid that. We're not, we're not trying to get this thing out and, to get a token and to, the get rich scheme type of thing, right? It's exactly what you're saying. It's like we're utility first on this. And so we already minted, all the tokens that we're going to use, a few months back. We already put on the site. You can go and see, there's a little wallet page you can go to. We've listed the the policy ID and everything there, right? So it's already minted and done out there. We haven't yet submitted the the metadata and stuff yet to the actual the token registry. That's a very simple, easy process, and we'll be doing that soon as we're ready to allow people to pull the tokens out of the system. So for now, what we're focused on is this utility token, and basically how we can start incentivizing people on, basically creating content in the system, right? So I think the first three things that we really talked about that we're going to nail was when you create a post, you get rewarded for it. When you comment on a post, you get rewarded, and then we finally have this concept of like boosting, right? Which is like we're still working on it. It's sort of around that area of liking and things like that. And we already have, the concept of, liking a post and things like that in the system. So I think with the boost, we're fine tuning that, and we're going to figure out, how we're going to put those pieces together. But the main ones that, I'm working on as far as the current development, is really the posts, and probably the comments are going to be the, the first two that we'll roll out. Because those make the most sense. And so again, another thing that we've talked about, we don't have Hydra yet. We don't have a way to, we talk a lot about the friction, right? Of how can we incentivize people, and how can people for creating content and making it as friction free as possible. And so by friction, it's like, obviously we think about when we use systems, we don't want to, I don't want to click a button and have to wait, 10 minutes. Hey, is something going to happen here? What's going on, right? It's like we want to get rid of all that stuff. And so Hydra is supposed to be one of these Cardano initiatives that's going to really help speed up transactions. So there's friction there, but then also costs of transactions, right? So Cardano's pretty good as far as costs go. Obviously we're not paying ETH costs or anything like that for gas or anything, right? When we want to send a native token, across the Cardano chain. But I think for what you and I have talked about, we're still not there with that, right? It's like, you're still looking at around Cardano. They require a, I guess you could call it like a no spam fee or whatever. If I wanted to send you some block tokens, right, that we've minted, I have one in my wallets, I need to send at least an ADA across the network, as well as like a transaction fee. And things are pretty low right now, roughly around 40 cents. So, it's like, you're looking at like 40 cents for the ADA plus, I don't know, roughly 10 cents or less, or around there for the actual transaction fee. So, or lower than that. But, it's like, okay, that's fine. But for somebody to, for instance, be able to give a boost to, somebody's comment or somebody's post, we'd like to get the speeds up on that, and two, we'd like to be able to have them sending, token without it being, like 40 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents, right? We want that to be like probably fractions of a penny, to be honest, and so from my reading and understanding, Hydra will help with that, since it's sort of this whole secondary node systems that, basically like Lightning, right, on Bitcoin, where we're going to be running these nodes, and then we're going to be interacting with that, and then eventually things, make it on chain. So with all that being said, what we decided with Block was like, well, okay, when these systems are ready, we will revisit. We have capability to do that. Nothing in our system is set in stone to where it's just like, oh, we'll never do that, right? So it's like the other thing we're trying to build is this foundation of being able to extend things, just like Cardano, right? It's a very all these hard forks, it's like they're extending the network as they build, and we want to be able to, do just have a similar mindset, right? We're not 100% blockchain based like that, but with all the development that's going in, it's like we want to have that same mindset of like, okay, for now we're building it this way. Later on, we've identified as a problem, so later on, we'll be able to migrate to this. So right now, what we're going to be doing is this next version that's going to be coming out probably sometime this week. Will be awarding, the system's going to be awarding people for posting and for commenting. We have a little built-in sort of delay. So if like you post on something today, we have a whole process that's running, and then it's going to basically look at like what's the last set of posts that's happened in 24 hours, and making sure like those posts aren't deleted, because you can go in and delete a post, it's like we're not going to reward you for that immediately. So it's like we have a little bit of a time gap in there. And so, you make a post, and then, say at midnight, we're going to batch all those up, and we're going to say, okay, who gets paid, right? Who gets block token? And so the idea will be the system's going to do that. And then we have our own internal ledger for now that's going to track all this stuff. It's sort of like it's kind of its own mini blockchain, not that complicated, but we start at a point of zero, and we'll track all these things in our database, and then we should be able to replay that back like you would like a real ledger on like on any chain, and to be able to arrive at the correct spot, right? So we'll just do that all internally in our database. And I think you were mentioning this morning, it's like, yeah, we want to have a good visual representation of like, okay, how much have I earned this week, or something like that. So we'll be on the wallet screen that's already there. We're already showing what your balance is on your NAMI or your Eternal wallet, right, in the app. So then we're going to have another screen in there that will show like your block balance, and then you'll also be able to see because we maintain that ledger, of like what you were paid for when, things like that. So those pieces are already mostly in place, and I'm just working over the testing and making sure that all the parts work together. And then we'll surface that in the UI and build that and everything, and then we'll be ready for the release then. So what that will do is that will show everybody, this is our idea of how we're going to be incentivizing positive content creation, right? We're going to focus on the instead of like dislikes and those things will be factored in at some point, but right now like we were talking, we want to focus on ways that people are contributing to the system, and then within these boundaries of time that we've making sure that we're not getting people kind of creating and then deleting a post, right, to try to game the system a little bit. It's like when all those things happen, then you will be rewarded on that, and these things will all be built up in our internal ledger in the system, in the database. And so then I think sometime this quarter, I think before the end of the year, you and I again will have to talk, because we have a lot of features still we have on our list that we're kind of prioritizing and trying to figure out what goes to the top. But like you're saying, then we want to allow that utility to come out, and so then we'll finish building basically the mechanisms to allow you to withdraw those tokens, and then what you do after that is up to you, right? And then of course, once we have withdrawal, then we're allowed for deposit back in. And so you can kind of think of it as like we're trying to build this very low fee, fast, in-app system. And then, once the timing is right for all the other pieces of Cardano to be put in, and then also our development time, you'll be able to get that stuff in and out of the system, and then, do whatever you want to do after that. So that's kind of the long sort of explanation of basically we're working on this next release to get block token, into your wallet on the system to prepare us then for making that stuff, interact on chain and everything later.
Yeah, and anybody that's been following knows that. I mean, you typically end up rolling out little updates through the week, but typically big updates about once a week. So it's kind of like you can almost expect, the big update rollouts. Pretty much everything that's happened from Monday to Friday kind of comes to a conclusion on Friday, and a big rollout comes in. You'll get a notification on your SoBloks profile. It says, hey, reload this page, there's an update in place. And then I shift F5, and then I'm like, oh, okay, cool, there's more stuff to play with. So it's always kind of a nice Friday way to end the weekend. And then I typically just leave you alone from there through the weekend, because if your head's buried down in all this stuff like mine is through the week, I don't even want to do anything with work most of the time. I'm actually I'm looking forward to like, because we do have so much stuff laid out. Like, we have so much stuff coming. And when is the SoBloks governance system going to be in place? So that, because I think that's a part of what some people are waiting for. Where they say, oh, I could get a SoBloks governance token, and there's only 500 of these. I want to make decisions, but what are those decisions, and where are they made, and how does that work, and why do I care about these NFTs? When is that to be expected, and how will that actually happen? Like, we already have a whole broad list of all these internal functions that we want to see. I think the question is what sorts of development milestones are going to be voted on by the governors of SoBloks? Like, how do we see that coming together?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's been another thing that, again, we've talked about, and we've seen in these other crypto projects. Like, man, I really like, how some of these are doing it. So yeah, I think we put out there, we're focusing on this quarter of 2022 is just really to do the governance NFT, sale and launch, the minting, right? So Cardano is cheap. So it's like, the governance tokens, to be honest, like, they're a pretty good deal right now.
Mhm.
And so I think as we get into next year, and you've talked about a lot of this stuff too, right? It's like, we're in the bear, what's driving, prices down, right? As we get into next year, we're going to see, Cardano probably go up, and as it goes up, 400 ADA, which we're pricing these at, is gonna, it's gonna cost more, right?
Mhm.
Um, so we want to spend the rest of this year just kind of letting people know enough ahead of time that, hey, they're available now. Get in early while they're cheap. Lock your place in. I pushed out, like, I think it was a week or two ago, already the code that will recognize, if you have a murder of crow, or if you have, one of the governance tokens in your wallet and you're holding it, you got, content creation access, right? So we turned it on for both of those tokens, whereas, before we launched with just, murder of crow, right? So it's like, you can, as a governance person now, you can, you don't need a murder of crow one. You can go with your governance token and create content too. So it's like, we've turned on at least a little bit there. We have on the governance site, basically, the rollout time frame. We were saying, like, Q1 through Q2 of next year. We have a lot of this work that we're trying to get out now before the end of the year. You need to be able to see the block token. You need to be able to see the value in the network, right? So once we start getting into next year, and we get some more funds and everything coming in through the various ways that we're working on that now. We want to start running in parallel. Then, okay, we have our initial foundational set of requirements and direction that we know we want to do. So now what makes sense now to sort of start thinking about, as we're now in parallel, we're building out, we're going to be building out another site that basically has where we migrate the governance proposals from the actual SoBloks site, which I'll get into in a minute. we're going to migrate, we're going to start, migrating, building the part to migrate them off onto the actual governance site, right? So our idea is, people with governance tokens will be launching over this quarter, special groups on SoBloks that only the governance tokens can unlock. And they're in those groups, it could be one, it could be more. We're still working on that. Once you're in that group, then, we can start having a, discussion there, conversation, and then sort of seeing what, really what the user base is looking for as features. And, if there's ones that align with us, pretty clearly, then, maybe we use that to bump that up, right? To, put that out then as part of like, okay, this is going to be either we already have this and we're going to do it, or this is one that we had on the list. More people have requested it. Let's put it on the governance side. So we're gonna have this process that we're still working out through, Q1 of next year, of like, first just getting the data in for governance on the SoBloks site to groups that are limited to governance token holders only. Okay, so we'll have that. So then as we're building out then the actual governance voting site and everything, we'll be working on that probably through most of Q1. Obviously we're going to go as fast as we can on it. So it's like, if we can shorten the time frame, we'll let everybody know, but we're just kind of putting it out there as like Q1 is going to be spent in parallel on getting the whole governance voting set up. And so we'll be releasing more in depth on that, but the voting is going to be cool because what we want to do is basically, once we have these topics, concerns, things that we've said, yeah, this is something that we're going to bubble up over to actually vote on it. Then, we want to have the system to where we can pop these in, and then we can set a time, and then, we put like 48 hours or something on this voting time. And then the system is basically, it's like, it's going to allow you, if you have that governance voting token, you're going to be able to cast your one vote, right, for one token, for one NFT. And so we're going to take those every hour then, and we're going to end up like doing some things on the back end to where we're going to be we're going to be basically creating like transaction posts out onto the blockchain that's going to, they're going to roll up all these votes, and then we're going to be, creating some, specific hash of them. We're going to be putting those on chain, and we're going to be linking all of those through this process. And so what you'll be able to see then is, ideally what we want is, we want to be able to see these proposals and then see every time a transaction has gone out on chain on Cardano with all these votes rolled up in our system and hashed out. And so you'll be able to see the breakdown of what, what wallet addresses did these votes. And, again, you can blockchain explore, then, this address does have that token in it, so it's like, you'll be able to see all the stuff on chain, and then we'll be able to count and see on chain, where all these votes have gone. And then at the end of, this time period, 48 hours, whatever it is, the system will close all that up, tally everything, and then, we'll be able to see, on the governance site, what the outcome was. So that's all very high level at this point. We'll be providing, more details about it, but that's sort of the gist, and so once those votes are there, then, we'll provide a, time where, if it's a feature to, I don't know, say add another wallet provider or something, right? It's like, once that's closed, then we will add the time of like, this feature will be due out in this release, which is going to hit this time, and then from there we'll also have, that full accountability as to, what we're releasing, what milestones they're in, and then, the status, and you'll be able to see all that stuff. So
I think it's also safe to say that the current generation of SoBloks governance tokens will be extremely limited, because I'm pretty sure you set the policy ID to close sales in like 2 months. So if you don't have one of those generation before the sales of those close, then you'll have to wait for the next generation to launch, just so you know. So they'll probably be even more rare than I mean, and I'm just going to call them like the pioneer
Yeah.
generation ultimately. Um, Let me ask you a more of a personal question, because I know that a lot of people are curious, and a lot of people have asked my wife this, and I'm going to interview my wife one of these days soon. What is it like to work with me on a project? Like what behind closed doors, who am I? I mean, you can be 100% honest.
You're a slave driver with a heart of gold. No, I told you, it's like I've worked at, banks in New York and stuff like that. And I think one of the things I value in our working relationship is you're very straightforward. If something stinks, then you're just not going to have a filter on it and you're going to say it. If something's, good, same thing. And then, if help is needed somewhere, you're like, that's the one thing is that you're very quick to just jump in and contribute, get it done. Where can I help? Let me know. So I think for me it's like that's a honestly a good working relationship. I tend not to like to work with people that want to beat around the bush or don't tell you what they think. It's like, no, just tell me up front what you think, because that's the quickest way that we're going to solve the problem. And if there's any disagreement or anything, it's like we address it, we get that out of the way, we solve the problem, we move on to the next thing. So
That's good. That's fair. That's very fair. I had no idea
yeah.
what you were going to say, and yeah, a lot of people think that it's funny because when people meet me off YouTube and they're around me for any period of time, for whatever reason they always seem so shocked that I'm pretty much the same on YouTube as I am in real life, pretty much in all things, even with my wife. And what's funny is my wife is a very dominant kind of personality, and it's like we play off of each other, we submit to each other depending on the situation, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I have a boss too, ladies and gentlemen, but yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed that. I'm just straight up, I mean, it is what it is all the time, and I don't tend to beat around the bush much, because like you said, you don't get anything done when you do that.
Right. Yep.
It's you,
Yep.
you just call it how you see it, you deal with it as it comes. So yeah, folks, I mean, at 32 minutes, I wanted to basically just talk about things with Jason a little bit more publicly, and make sure, just to give you guys kind of an update as to like what sort of conversations do we have, what are we working on, where do we see this thing going. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think that over the coming months, we're going to see a lot more growth in SoBloks. Right now it's limited to just these NFT holders. And
Right.
we did that specifically to have beta testers, alpha testers, whatever you want to call them, who have a genuine care about what we're building and what we're doing now, because it comes from me, it comes from Jason. It's like, the overall mission of building this social media platform on Cardano. And it will open up to the public in the future, but right now we want to keep things a little more controlled, keep it focused around people who have a genuine interest in what we're doing, because ultimately I don't see this being like a Twitter or a Facebook. I think ultimately, when I think of SoBloks, I think of the focus being more geared towards tech writers, authors, finance, business, how
Crypto.
to's, artists, people that create. The entire idea for this is to empower creators of any
Right.
front to contribute and build a community, and like a city block, a social block. And that's pretty much what created the name SoBloks. And I think we're going to do it. I really do. And I think that just the milestones we've reached just in the last month or two have really kind of given me some significant hope that we are doing the right thing. And like you said, when all this stuff started happening with Twitter, it's like, this isn't the first, or this is the first, but it's not going to be the last. This is not going to be the last time we see something like this, where an entire platform changes hands or whatever. I mean, and I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I mean, Facebook and Meta, I mean, that's having some real rough times right now, and who knows how that's going to work out in the end. And I think we're going to start leaving the old way of doing things in favor of a new way, and that new way, I think, is going to be a more decentralized, community driven methodology behind content curation, community curation, growth, development. and basically being able to value the content that's being put out there, not just a bunch of people kind of trying to build, like I have 5,000 friends on Facebook. I don't know 95% of these people, you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean anything to me, so yeah, man, like thanks for doing this. And we're gonna be, I think we maybe we'll do this once a week, kind of or if maybe every 2 weeks or something, for those of you guys that are interested. And if you watch this all the way through 35 minutes in and you have questions, ask your questions in the comments below, and I'm sure Jason and I both will check them out and we'll respond to them. And keep tabs on it, bookmark it, SoBloks.com, obviously a link in the description. But check it out and let us know, like, where do you want to see this? Read the light paper. That's going to give you a very big breakdown of where we want to build this, how we want to build it, where we see it going, and what kind of functions and services it's going to provide to you. So yeah, thanks, Jason, and I will follow up with you after I hit end on this. Until next time, guys, grow your coins, and I'll see you soon.